Hello and welcome. This is Lab 8, Configuring Active Directory Domain Services on VMware vSphere. I'm Richard Golson, and I want to introduce you to the lab. So if you take a look here, you can see that I'm actually logged into the vSphere client. And one of the things I want to point out is that we will be working with adding identity sources to our vSphere environment. The vSphere environment comes with a default identity source which is the system domain, and this is named vclass.local for our environment. Besides that identity source, which is a single sign-on or SSO identity source, we will be adding the netlab.local identity source. That is an Active Directory identity source, and that one's named netlab.local. So an important function of vSphere administration includes assigning administrative permissions for your resources, as well as managing user logins. If we take a look here, we have these users, and here's a set of users that are all part of our vclass.local. You can see the sysadmin user we've been using extensively, but since this has been joined to a different domain or a different identity source, if you take a look here at netlab.local, here's another set of accounts, including another sysadmin user account. Now, besides that, we also talked about the fact that we can set permissions, and these are handled through roles. So a role is a set of permissions. When you select a role, such as administrator, you can see that the privileges that it gets are quite a bit. You can see that we have privileges that fall under alarms, under permissions, managing permissions for deploying, certificate authority, computing policies, content library. I mean, the administrator account is essentially the one that can do pretty much anything, right? But then we have next to that the read-only account, which at this point has no privileges assigned, so it doesn't allow the user to do anything other than to view, to log in and see things, but not actually to make any kind of modifications or changes or create anything new. We will see that as we use those two roles in this lab. Now, typically what you do is you assign those privileges to some asset, some object, and so we can see when we look that we have this usage. In this case, in the lab, the usage is for the NetLab domain, Active Directory domain, sysadmin user, and that was defined on the 172.20.10.94 vCenter server. So there you go. So you can see how that this read-only actually was applied to a sysadmin user for here. And so that restricts their access or their ability to manage things. Really ensuring this kind of granular permissions on a resources, allowing teams to launch VMs on specific clusters, but also providing an audit trail of actions for purposes of accountability is really important for securing and maintaining our environment. Now, single sign-on or SSO is used by vSphere as our default source for identity and access management. So if we come back down here to single sign-on and we look at our configuration, we can see that the default source is the sysadmin, but we've added an additional source here. And that additional source is an Active Directory authentication scheme. Now, when you use something like single sign-on, what it really is really cool about it is it allows us to use that one account with one set of one account with the single password to log in or manage many other resources. So this gives us rights across all kinds of resources. So using single sign-on is highly beneficial. During the process of creating the single sign-on, or modifying your single sign-on, you will also again work with roles and permissions. All right, I think you're going to enjoy this lab. It's really kind of neat how you get to go in there and kind of manage and control this kind of environment. So I think you're going to enjoy it.
and let me know how it goes for you.